Well, I didn't mean to interrupt your answering the question, but it just struck me that when you talked about having a beautiful experience, and then it's an experience that by definition has to come and go, and therefore it's not part of what's real and lasting.
That's right. It's not real and lasting. Mm-hmm.
What makes a beautiful experience is something in you recognizing that which is eternal.
That which is eternal.
So what is it that recognizes? So isn't that just like a hair's breadth away from...
Absolutely. It's a hair's breadth away. But the reason we do not recognize is because there is a great fear. Because spirit is emptiness. That's why Buddha said, there's no creator, there's no creation, there is no God, there is no soul. See, that's what Buddha said, so that people don't get caught with words. He said there's only emptiness. And people got scared. But in truth, that's what it is. But emptiness is what created everything, because it's pure energy. Scientists call it pure energy. From pure energy become waves. Waves create particles, and then we have molecular structure, and then we have the world. You see? But you cannot separate matter from mass, which is energy. You cannot separate from another. So therefore, when we say emptiness, is also fullness. You see? But it's a beautiful word because it leaves you without concepts. Okay? And that is the beauty. So when you recognize emptiness, that you're totally empty. Right now, if you're looking, really, who's looking is the emptiness looking through you. We call it consciousness, but I like to call it emptiness.
So experience could lead to recognition.
Experience could lead to recognition if we take the personal away from it. If you say, I had an experience, then you're going to lose it. Because you made the ego experience it. So you feel good, but it won't stay with you.
No, of course
okay? Not. Right. But if you begin to realize that experience is an opening to that which is total, eternal, then what happens is the soul takes a leap in its own understanding towards the spirit. You see? So that becomes the recognition. And then you don't lose it. And the reason you don't lose it is because you didn't make it personal. I experienced it.
Because no one experiences.
Because no one experiences enlightenment. You see? Yeah. Just like Adyashanti said, he says, you cannot experience enlightenment because enlightenment means there is no you. You see? So that's the enlightened experience. So that means, that doesn't mean anything happens to your personality. Your personality is still the same. Everything is still the same. But there's no longer an ego. You see, you're selfless, more or less. You have love, you have compassion, you have understanding, you have clarity. But you're not caught in the self. And that's true love. You see? Because you cannot love until you disappear. Just like when you fall in love. When you fall in love is the greatest moment that we can have. And as the first spiritual intimacy that we can experience. But falling in love usually doesn't last more than an hour or two. Because then we start thinking about the lover. And then we become possessive and then lose it. But at that moment of falling in love, that moment is totally selfless. As a matter of fact, you become the other person. That's what falling in love is. You forget yourself. Or when a mother gives birth, if she was looking forward to the child, at that moment that she's experiencing the child, she's in love. Totally in love with the child. And no matter how much pain she had to go through to give birth, at that moment it just falls away. Because she's egoless at that moment. You see, at that moment of birth. But what happens is, we recall it and say, oh, I fell in love. Oh, I gave birth. And we lose it again. Because we make it personal. You see? So the whole point of the soul is to keep recognizing that there is no one who experiences. There's just pure experience. You see? And that pure experience is total. Just like when you're loving. You don't really love someone in reality. There's love. Period. You see? You feel the heart feeling that love, and the other person feels that love, and the room is filled with love. At that moment, there's just love. So the point is, but the moment we make it personal and we start to own it, then the ego takes over control again. You see? I want to own it. This is mine. I hope it will last. I hope I don't lose it. And then before you know it, things start going haywire. Okay? And during all this, during the interim of these experiences, the soul is learning. The spirit doesn't learn. Okay? The spirit doesn't learn. The spirit is the love itself. Okay? So therefore, most people, when they come to satsang, they say, oh, I'm going to learn something. No, you're not here to learn anything. You're here to awaken to your true nature. Learning is only done by the soul. Spirit is not learned. Spirit does not hold any information. That's why there are hardly any books written about it, unless it's Advaita Vedanta, which is the only form that I know that actually can talk about spirit. But then what they say about it, you cannot define it, you cannot explain it, you cannot see it. So we go into that. But in soul, you can talk about it, you can fill up volumes. You see? Because it takes care of all evolution, all memory, all process that you go through. But the process of growth of the soul is really a misnomer, because nothing actually happens. Okay, let me give you an example. There's a ladder, okay? L-A-D-D-E-R, in case my accent makes it feel like lather. Okay, there's a ladder. And but it's very tall. You don't see the top. You don't see anything. So you start from the bottom, and you start climbing, you see? And as you climb, there's a process of climbing, right? And then you're at the top. And you cannot say, well, I've achieved the ladder. It was always there, even when you were at the bottom. But because it was so tall, you didn't see it. So it took that process in order for you to reach the top. When you reach the top, you realize nothing actually happened. It was always there. Okay? So this is what happens between soul and spirit. Soul feels that it's always evolving, always moving, going through a process. See? But when you finally wake up to the spirit, you realize the spirit has always been perfect, always been there. Always, that very love that we've always wanted. It is our true fundamental nature. It is. I don't know whether we understand. You know, one beautiful thing that I read about the Course that I loved so much is when it said, God is. And that said it all. I had my first little glimpse when I read those words, actually. God is. See, which is so powerful. So your question, I know I'm belaboring the point here, but it's very important, the question that you've asked. Is the watcher the soul? And no, the watcher is spirit. Okay? It's the highest that you can be, but there is no limit to that height. Because it is everything. Everything that appears arises from spirit, from the watcher, from that seeing. Everything arises from that. And we can say with words that watcher is that aware space. Right now, you're watching. Are you conscious of you? It's just like being without a head, isn't it? You're looking at the whole group, and you see everyone, but you don't see yourself. It's just like being without a head. So that's when you become aware that watching, this aware space, that's your fundamental nature. But the mind comes in and says, oh, I'm aware of this, I'm aware of that. I like this person, I don't like this person. Oh, I should be like this, and I shouldn't be like that. That's all mind. And that's what confounds, you see, our aware space. Our space has no judgment, has no mental activity in it at all. Now, some people might say, but therefore I should quiet my mind then. I should stop my mind from thinking. What do you think? Should we stop our minds from thinking so much?
Good luck.
Hmm?
Good luck.
Thank you. It can be done. So what do you do then?
Was that? A baby that just comes into the world. What state of consciousness is it in? Pure consciousness, but it's not aware of itself yet. It doesn't have the ability to recognize as yet. So it still has to grow into teenagehood, develop ego, etc., and go through those stages.